Skeen finally sees his chance the moment that Nemik gets crushed. In this essay, I'll explain why I believe this is the moment he realizes he can get at that cash. I'll also cover his character archetype, probably not the one you think, why he's here in the first place, why Cassian rubs him out so mercilessly, and how Nemik throws a spanner into Cassian's plans after his final breath. The Rono is in space, the garrison is behind them, Nemik is fading, and once the engines settle into that steadier hum, the Aldhani team stops being a team. The necessity that held everyone together for those last few days, right down to those last frantic few minutes, is gone. There is room to breathe, and the second that room appears, motive comes flooding back in. Cassian wants a heading, Vel wants to know whether Nemik is still alive, and Skeen insinuates that she's thinking that it might be easier for her if he isn't. Within seconds, the atmosphere is changed from shared action to shared suspicion. I don't think Skeen came into Aldhani with a hidden master plan to rob the rebels. For most of those 6 months, there was no conceivable route by which he could have done it. He didn't have a pilot he could turn, though he was trying with one of them. He couldn't overpower the entire team, and even if the heist succeeded, the money was presumably going straight into some wider rebel handover operation that he knew nothing about. So the question is why he was there at all. I think the answer is still basically the money, because despite his accusations towards Cassian, the only person here who isn't really a rebel in their heart is Skeen. He doesn't care. It's like asking the hobo who lives in the woods if he prefers it now that Trump is president rather than Biden. It literally makes no difference to the guy at the bottom of the food chain. He probably does hate the Empire. Everyone at his level of society has reason to. He has spent his life in prisons, on criminal crews, doing whatever rough work or low-level scheming keeps him going. To somebody living in that world, the Republic was probably crap and the Empire is worse, and neither has ever offered him much beyond another boot on his neck. But that doesn't make him a rebel. He can enjoy hurting the Empire, feel some genuine satisfaction in stealing from it, and perhaps even have a real personal grievance behind some part of the story about his brother. None of that means he cares what happens to the rebellion afterwards. On its own, that still doesn't explain why someone as self-protective as Skeen would spend 6 miserable months preparing for a raid which pays him nothing and could very easily get him killed. Tens of millions of credits does. Skeen knows the odds of personally getting the money must be microscopic. In most versions of events, assuming the plan works, he walks away with no more than he arrived with. He has lost 6 months, probably gained some fresh trauma, and perhaps enjoyed the satisfaction of annoying the Empire. But the sums they are discussing are no longer money in any ordinary sense. They represent the ability to disappear permanently from the life that produced him. Even if the chances are 1 in 50, 1 in 100 or 1 in a million, the sheer size of the outcome makes proximity to it feel valuable. Skeen isn't investing 6 months in a plan, he's burying himself near a future opportunity, just in case. He also probably thinks the operation itself is relatively safe by the standards of the life he leads. They have an Imperial officer on the inside, 6 months of prep, a distracted garrison, and a celestial event which is going to do half the work for them. In most of the timelines where he doesn't get the money, he presumably expects to survive, leave Aldhani and go back to whatever he was doing before. And what exactly has he put on hold here? A career, a mortgage, a loving family wondering when he'll be home? For a drifter like Skeen, Aldhani may not even represent much of a sacrifice. It gives him food, shelter, temporary safety, something to do, people to be around, and the chance to take part in the biggest robbery he has ever heard of. There is danger for one day at the end, but how often has Skeen had a life where for 6 solid months he can be reasonably sure when he wakes up that he'll survive the day? Grievance, shelter, and purpose explain why he can tolerate being there. The money explains why he actually says yes. Before Cassian arrives, he has no way of getting at it though. He's in a holding pattern, watching and waiting. I want to get into his character a little bit, or how I see him. Mostly headcanon to be fair, but reverse engineered from the character archetype being portrayed on the screen. He has a lot in common with Cassian, who is your classic rogue, conman, thief, an expert in infiltration, disruption and improvisation. But Skeen is what I would call a knave. It's dirtier, it's what you get if you take a rogue and remove the empathy, the code and all the charm. Both he and Cassian are con men, but Cassian uses softer skills than Skeen, who relies on extortion, threat, intimidation, blackmail and scams. In D&D alignment, I'd place him at neutral evil. He was born in the hole, in his own words, had a terrible childhood. This clearly isn't his first heist. He's been on 100 crews, probably double-crossed one or two in his time. He's done legit work too, in the docks, in security, in construction. He has no friends, no ties, and doesn't stop moving. I don't think he's one for getting his hands dirty, not someone to follow a bejeweled noblewoman down a quiet alley and dispatch her himself, but he'll put her in that position for someone else, for a cut of the take. Not a fighter, but pretty accomplished at striking from the dark with a blade. And importantly, he can't fly the ship. I actually think he might be the only one in the heist who can't, and that is probably another reflection of his background of poverty and intransigence. Many people in this galaxy can fly a ship. They had options, that's what the argument was about. Cassian's point was that he should fly it because he's the best pilot. Learning to fly means either having your own ship or paying for lessons in someone else's, or a simulator. Vel, posh adventurous lady, definitely going to be able to afford both her own ship and instruction. Taramyn and Gorn can probably fly basic troop shuttles and similar, like a freighter, from their basic training. Cassian probably couldn't afford to fly in most circumstances either, but unlike Skeen, he has had stable parents who owned a ship for their scavenger work, plus he lived on Ferrix, which means acquiring junk ships and parts is easier. I assume they, and subsequently Marva, taught him in their old ship that he was later living in, which leaves Nemik. Definitely comes across as middle class, like he went to a good school. I don't think he's been shoveling much bantha doo-doo in his life, so my guess is he doesn't own a ship but has had lessons, and has ingested this manual too. Skeen needs one of them, and none of them really make any sense as an accomplice. Vel is 100% in for the cause. Gorn isn't even at the camp for Skeen to work on. Taramyn is grumpy, closed off, and seems to respect Skeen as somebody he has to work with rather than somebody he wants to know. Cinta is kept largely apart from the men by Vel, no chance to build a special little friendship there. That leaves Nemik. Nemik is the softest way into the group, but probably the hardest person in it to corrupt. He is open, friendly, and eager to connect with people, but ideologically he is almost immovable. Skeen knows the kid is never going to turn against the rebellion, even at gunpoint, but if he is instinctively drawn towards the people who might someday be useful, Nemik still makes the most sense. He is approachable, he likes Skeen and appears to admire his experience. Taramyn treats Skeen as a colleague, Nemik gives him the chance to be an older brother. I have pushed the idea of a genuinely protective big brother connection between Skeen and Nemik, and I still think it's real. It may have begun because Nemik was the easiest person to befriend. Those things are not mutually exclusive. Manipulators can genuinely like the people they first approach for practical reasons, and after 6 months Skeen may not even know where calculation stops and affection began. That's the other thing about Skeen, he's capable of doing terrible things to people who trust him when there's a way to crawl over them, but he does feel bad about it. He actually seems quite sensitive. I even think Nemik's writings and their conversations are starting to get to him. If they'd had a year to prep instead of 6 months, we may have seen a changed man. The important part is that affection never becomes obligation. So there Skeen is, eating slop, drinking vomit-flavoured milk, sleeping on rocks, and bonding with Nemik in the Aldhani hills. He can't do anything else, that's as good as it gets, and he knows he'll never get his chance with the money. Then Cassian shows up. For the first time, Skeen has somebody he can imagine doing it with, a man who looks, from the outside, a lot like he does, a mercenary. It may take a little while to figure it out, but Skeen seems to know that instinctively. This is great for him, but it doesn't make him as welcoming as we might expect, it makes him nervous. Cassian is an unknown man dropped into a plan they have spent months preparing. He knows prison tattoos, immediately spots weaknesses, handles weapons confidently, carries something valuable and gives almost nothing away. He is a possible accomplice, but he is also the biggest security threat Skeen has seen since arriving. Skeen's suspicion is real, and it is probably intensified by projection. A man with an angle assumes everybody else has one too, so he spends the next few days investigating Cassian, questioning him, provoking him, and finally exposing the crystal. Part of that is about protecting the operation. Part of it, I think, is also assessing whether this man might say yes if an opening ever appears. He does all this to satisfy his dark curiosity, but also as a vetting process. Whether it's annoyed Cassian or not is a moot point, because a merc soon forgets such minor infractions when this much money is involved. When Cassian admits he's being paid, Skeen thinks he has finally found the answer. Cassian is not a believer. He has no ideological commitment to the mission. He is here because somebody put a price on the work. Skeen's mistake is believing that a man with a price must be a man without loyalties. So back to poor Nemik, crushed like a failing YouTuber's dreams, squashed like a toddler's birthday cake on the bus home. Skeen's immediate pain is real. He likes Nemik, he wants him to survive, but I also think he sees the opportunity immediately, not later at the doctor's, not after they land, the moment he's crushed. He's literally been waiting for a moment that wasn't ever expected to come. It's his entire reason for being there, and he didn't miss it when it did come. The underground doctor is part of their contingency planning. Diverting there will pull the payroll away from wherever it is supposed to be delivered. Skeen can't exactly make this speech to Cassian now, he needs time alone with him. Cassian's currently flying the ship. Somewhere? To be met by Luthen's people, armed and suspicious, and at that point his dream is over. He needs something else to happen. The rendezvous needs to be disrupted. What happens after that he doesn't know yet, but this gets him one step closer. So by the time Skeen starts arguing for the change in direction, I think he's thinking primarily of the money more than Nemik. The fact that the doctor might save Nemik is a bonus. Skeen genuinely wants that outcome, it just happens to align with his needs right now. He can give Nemik his best chance of survival and create his own best chance of taking the money through exactly the same decision. He isn't planning to stay around long enough to see whether Nemik makes it, but he'll leave with the knowledge that whatever happens to the kid, it wasn't his fault. Had his best route to the payroll involved avoiding the doctor, I think Skeen would have argued for that instead. He would have been genuinely upset about the necessity of it, perhaps even more upset than anyone else, and then he would have done it anyway. And he'd pull the trigger if Nemik was between him and the money, swearing to stop him. Vel genuinely is conflicted. They won, even if they got less than they wanted and lost 2 men, going on 3, they won. But they haven't really won yet, until the survivors are safe and the money is wherever Luthen intends it to go. An unscheduled diversion for someone who appears beyond saving is a huge risk. Nonetheless, Cassian swings the decision towards the doctor. If Skeen believes Cassian processes the world as he does, he may read that vote as proof that the other criminal has seen the same opening he has. Cassian wants the route changed too. Cassian wants the rebel handover interrupted. Cassian wants them somewhere outside the plan. But I don't think the money has crossed Cassian's mind yet. He is thinking about Nemik, and this is part of the distinction between the 2 men that defines what happens next. The man who has spent several episodes telling himself that he is only there for a fee is now helping carry an injured revolutionary to an underground doctor before the payroll has even been dealt with. Once Vel is inside with Nemik, Skeen makes his move. He begins with luck, which feels right for him. Luck drives the whole damned galaxy. That is the philosophy of someone who has lived too long in scarcity to believe in fairness. There is no justice, no meaningful reward for effort, and no great design organising the universe. There are openings, and there are people quick enough to take them. Then he gets to the number, 80 million, 40 million apiece, a dead moon with no one home, enough to disappear. When Cassian brings up the brother with the orchard, Skeen says, "I don't have a brother." It sounds like a confession, but it isn't quite one. It's an odd way to say it. It's like, yeah, I know you don't have a brother. He's dead, you told me. If the brother died, the sentence is still true. Skeen does not say he invented the orchard or that he never had a brother. So what that gives Cassian is not clarity but destabilization. He makes the whole story wobble at the exact moment he is trying to make Cassian wobble too. That isn't, I lied about everything, it's, you don't get to know what part of me was real. The real weapon in Skeen's pitch is his theory of Cassian. He is trying to tell Cassian who he is. Paraphrasing, he says, you and I are the same animal. We came up from the same dirt. We know how the world works. We know the cause is for other people. Men like us take the opening when it comes, and damn who gets hurt in the process. He needs the pilot, but all he can offer is safe harbour. Skeen must also realise that Cassian is the type of guy who probably has his own bolt holes and secretive black market ports, for the same reasons he's using this approach, because he's a dodgy merc with a criminal background. So it's a hell of a reach, but Skeen goes for it. He hasn't got much to offer, but it's this or nothing, and he's so close right now that he probably can actually literally smell the money. Cassian's rejection, when it comes, is violent and fast. The practical part of it is obvious self-preservation. Once Skeen says it out loud and Cassian refuses, the equation changes instantly. Skeen knows Cassian is a threat, that he'll tell Vel. Cassian knows Skeen knows it. They cannot put that cat back in the bag and carry on as normal. Cassian also knows that any agreement with Skeen may be worthless. A man willing to abandon Vel and Nemik for 40 million credits will eventually decide that 80 million is better. There is no stable deal to make. But that alone does not explain the speed of the draw. There is something more personal and involuntary in it. Skeen has named the filthiest part of Cassian with total confidence. He has taken the life Cassian has been living and turned it into a creed. You can almost see Cassian's body reject it before his mind catches up. There is survival in the shot, but there is also disgust, an allergic reaction to the wrongness of what Skeen defined him as. I once said Cassian lashed out at his own reflection in an allergic reaction to the concept of being part of the machinery of authority. I called the reaction "that will not be me." This is the same thing here. Finally, most cutting of all, I think there's a small chance Skeen was reaching him. No need to hurt Nemik. Vel won't even know we've gone. And then what? Steal the doctor's ship from the barn and guess which way they went? All they have to do is get in and fly away. Hell, I'd have done it. I'd have shot Skeen and been out of there probably before Skeen even tried his speech. Cassian doesn't know these people. He has spent a handful of days with them. They owe him their lives as it is. I also think part of Cassian realizes that if he lets Skeen keep talking, he may go for it. It's starting to make sense, so he shuts him up. Skeen was one of the more interestingly performed characters in the show, and the guy behind him is Ebon Bachrach, primarily known for the bear. I haven't seen it. Outside Andor, I've only seen him as Ben Grimm in the new Fantastic Four film, in which I thought he was excellent, really personifying blue-collar New York as Ben should. And while we're on the topic, let's wave off Alex Lawther. He's still only 30, he's from up the road in Winchester and has already been in a bunch of things, although the only one I've seen was Alien Earth, and unlike most people, I thought that was a bit rubbish. Back to the scene which walks us inside. The Doctor has failed. Vel thanks him for trying, then Cassian enters armed and the Doctor throws up all four hands. Vel's response is fury, suspicion and refusal. She refuses to believe what Skeen was planning. Has she met him? He's the sketchiest man in the galaxy. His name is a cross between scheme and skeeve, for Christ's sake. Of course he was capable of taking the money. That doesn't mean he came into Aldhani with the plan to do it. It means Vel recruited a man whose loyalty was always conditional, then placed him next to enough money to turn a fantasy into permanent escape. It's easier for her to put the dirt on the outsider than on the man she recruited. Better to have been wrong about the mercenary than wrong about the whole mission. Cassian, for his part, retreats into the oldest explanation he has for himself. He wants his cut, the exact amount promised. He is leaving the Rono and the rest of the money. He did the job, he gave his word, he is done. All he wants is to win and walk away clean. Cassian takes the credits owed to him and returns the crystal. He is trying to reduce Aldhani back to a contract after Aldhani has already changed him. You can hear him forcing the old logic over the top of a new reality. He even offers the Doctor 30,000 credits for the ship in the barn, twice its value. In a room full of mortality, suspicion and failed ideals, he is still trying to leave through a transaction. He wants this to be something that can be balanced, squared, paid for and walked away from. He almost manages it. Then Nemik reaches out from beyond the grave and destroys the attempt, having asked Vel to give Clem the digital notepad containing his writings, recordings and manifesto. Cassian gives one treasure back and takes the other away. He says he doesn't want it, but of course he takes it. This is the point where Aldhani stops being a score and becomes an inheritance. Skeen tries to turn the whole thing into a robbery after the fact, 40 million each and the rest can rot. Cassian rejects that path in the most final way possible. Vel tries to hold on to some remnant of the group's dignity while surrounded by evidence that she never fully knew what some of them were. Nemik doesn't make it, but his words survive the mission, and Cassian, who still wants to call himself a hired man, take his fee and walk away clean, becomes the person those words are handed to. The crew is finished, the operation is finished. What remains is a rebel manifesto in the hands of the one person still trying hardest to believe that none of this has got anything to do with him.